The following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFfangeek coming to you with what will hopefully be a quick and successful video. This is just my latest haul of Transformers action figures that arrived from Amazon.com. The reason why I haven't done any videos this week is because, well, my family has been sick with colds and I felt like I was getting a cold. I'm hoping I don't get sick too, since I haven't missed any days of work so far, which is really good. So anyways, just a quick haul video showing my latest group of Transformers figures. First up, I got some new upgrade kits from Amazon. The first one is for Studio Series TF1 Megatron on Deluxe Class, which basically gives him the triple barrel fusion cannon that he uses in his final battle after the Matrix of Leadership is given to Orion Pax and he upgrades into Optimus Prime. There's also some additional filler pieces and a connection piece to attach the new cannon to Megatron when he transforms into tank mode. So yeah, I felt that was a much cooler looking cannon than the original one that Hasbro officially gave him. The next upgrade kit is for the Studio Series A86 Commander Class G1 Optimus Prime figure. I'm really excited for that. For this, it's primarily filler pieces. He says mostly for Optimus Prime's legs when he's in robot mode, but then there's also a filler piece for when he transforms into truck mode. And the main part of this upgrade kit is the jetpack that Optimus Prime borrows from Sideswipe during episode 3 of the G1 cartoon, so that's a nice addition there. I don't know if it's able to store in the trailer. I thought there was a photo on Amazon showing that it can be stored inside the trailer with roller. But yeah, nice upgrade kit to fill those hollowed out parts. Next up, the figure whose box I actually used to take the thumbnail of the video, my latest Transformers Age of the Primes figure. It was one I was going to pass on completely, but after seeing people who decided to get it and did reviews on it, gave it positive reviews, I figured, you know what, even though it's a repaint of a previously released figure, I was staring down at it, which is why I wasn't looking at the camera. I apologize. But I figured, why not get this figure and add it to my collection? So here is Transformers Age of the Primes G2 Grimlock with G2 Wheelie. So yes, a lot of Transformers fans and collectors were hoping that instead of Wheelie, we might have gotten Grimlock's sword as an additional accessory piece. If I had to choose, I would have gone with the sword instead of Wheelie, but it is a nice addition here. Wheelie never actually did get a figure in the Generation 2 line. His Wheelie's paint job is based on the prototype image of the his prototype figure, which ended up being his appearance in the G1 Marvel comics. So that's what his paint job is based on. And then, of course, unlike the version of G2 Grimlock we got in the Transformers Legacy Evolution Toxitron collection, which was based on the cancelled yellow version of Grimlock, this version of Grimlock, which is blue now, this was the G2 figure that Grimlock got in the Transformers Generation 2 line, I believe back in, it was either 1992 or 1993 when Generation 2 Grimlock was released. But yeah, it's a nice deep shade of solid cobalt blue, and I love that shade of blue plastic, which is what finally made me, watching reviews of it and seeing how much of a solid shade of blue plastic that Grimlock is made of. That's what sold me on the figure. It's a much richer shade of blue than the one that appears on his product photos. Here it looks more like a bluish gray, but it's actually solid blue, which is quite nice. So really happy to see that for Generation 2 characters, the designers at Hasbro and Takara have continued the legacy of the Generation 2 line and having action figures of those characters be done in bright, vibrant colored plastic. Last but definitely by no means least is a figure that I was surprised to find on Amazon, but it's one that I don't regret adding to my collection, and I'll explain why. It's a replacement figure for one I've already owned for many years now, but I was looking at the first version I got, and as great as it was and happy as I was to have it in my collection, it's still has quite a few flaws. I tried to fix it up as best I could, but I kept telling myself in the back of my mind, if ever I someday got the chance to get a replacement figure that was in better condition, I would go for it, so I did. And here is the figure that, depending on which Transformers action figures you're into, might be the most surprising. It's the one that was released. This one came out many years ago. Oh, so enough build up. Here is my most recent purchase from Amazon, and it is the original from the line that started all the other sublines of Transformers action figures, well, most of them anyway, that are on the wall behind me. And here is, without further delay, Transformers Classics Ramjet. So yes, here is the deluxe class as version of Ramjet. This is the first ever Chug style Ramjet figure, released way back in 2006 in the Transformers Robots in Disguise Classics line, the line that started Chug style Transformers figures. And wow, I can't believe next year in 2026 will mark 20 years of Chug style Transformers figures being out there. So, long story short, the Classics line was launched in 2006 originally to be a filler line between what was at the time the current line of Transformers action figures, which was Transformers Cybertron, the final series of the Unicron trilogy, which most of the figures had come out in 2005, and during the spring of 2006 was when the last waves were being released. And Hasbro realized it wouldn't be until the following year, in the spring of 2007, right before the live-action movie was launched, that they would be able to get the action figures based on the characters from the first live-action Transformers movie out at retailers, which left almost 6 months during the entire second half of the year 2006 without any new Transformers products. And rather than dragging out the Transformers Cybertron line to the point that people wouldn't be interested in buying Transformers action figures anymore, Hasbro decided to come up with a brand new idea and said, you know what, let's design some new Transformers action figures that have joints similar to the figures that we released in the recent Transformers Cybertron line, but instead of possessing the Cyber Key gimmick, they will be based solely on Transformers action figures from the original Transformers Generation 1 line back in the 1980s. And what started out as a placeholder line in between the most recent Transformers cartoon series and the first live-action Transformers film ended up kickstarting arguably the most popular style of Transformers action figures ever created, which would eventually come to be known as Chug-style Transformers action figures, named after the first 4 lines of Transformers action figures that were created for the specific purpose of being modern releases and modern, quote-unquote, updated/upgraded versions of Transformers action figures that had come out years previously during the start of the Transformers franchise. So yeah, Ramjet was one of the first characters handpicked to be released in the Transformers Classics line, along with other characters such as Optimus Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, Starscream, Grimlock, Marah, Oj, Ultra Magnus, Skywarp, and I can't remember the names of all the characters. Jetfire was another one, but yeah, those are most of the Voyager and Deluxe class figures released in the Transformers Classics line. And while originally it didn't do too well at retail outlets, partially because it was something brand new, and most of the older Transformers collectors from the Generation 1 franchise weren't into the recent Transformers series, so they weren't aware of Classics until it was out. And for the younger fans and collectors, after seeing characters from the 1980s been getting popular action figures, it was one where they weren't too sure if they were going to get into it or not. So yeah, it was a rocky start back in 2006 for Chug-style Transformers figures, when they were still known simply by the line in which they were released, which was known as Transformers Classics. And here's an interesting bit of trivia. On the boxes for the Transformers figures that were released in the Transformers Classics line, the word Classics doesn't appear anywhere on the box. It was known simply as Transformers Robots in Disguise, and a lot of people thought it was just another reimagining of the Robots in Disguise line that had been released in 2001, since it had been used on a handful of Transformers action figures that weren't necessarily from the 2001 series, which later would come to be known as Car Robots, thanks to the 2015 Robots in Disguise cartoon show. But the point I'm trying to make is that at the time in the late 2000s, Hasbro's mentality was, this is a placeholder line, it's not as important as the live-action movies, because the live-action movies are going to bring in fans. But by the time the live-action movie had come to a close, and Hasbro was facing another placeholder year in 2008 until the next live-action movie, Revenge of the Fallen, would be released in 2009, and they launched another placeholder line continuing the Classics line with the Transformers Universe / Classics 2.0 line in 2008. More and more fans and collectors, especially G1 fans, were starting to buy and collect these new Transformers action figures based on G1 characters with modern articulated joints. And the idea of having action figures of the Generation 1 characters with more joints, which meant more poses in robot mode and a lot more articulation. Fans embraced it a lot more than they did the live-action films, and following Revenge of the Fallen's mediocre performance in 2009, Hasbro slowly started to realize, slowly being the key word, that, maybe there's the number of Transformers fans that are into the live-action movies are almost the same as the amount of fans that are into the older characters from Generation 1, which the live-action movie characters, most of them were based upon anyways. And by the time Dark of the Moon was mediocre, Age of Extinction did a mediocre to lousy performance, and then The Last Knight tanked. Hasbro by the mid 2010s decided, there's a lot more money into these classics / generation style Transformers, which they were known as by then, and the acronym CHUG had started to float around the internet thanks to the first 4 lines of these styles of action figures that were released. Classics, which was released in the United States by Hasbro. Henkei, which was released by Takara Tomy in 2008, the same year that Universe / Classics 2.0 was released by Hasbro in 2008, and then Generations 2 years later in 2010. And so, by the time, I'd say in between Dark of the Moon's release in 2011 and The Last Knight, Age of Extinction, I got the titles mixed up, between Dark of the Moon in 2011 doing a mediocre performance at the box office, and Age of Extinction doing less than mediocre in 2014, Hasbro realized there was a bigger market for Chug-style Transformers than there were in the live-action movies, and so, even though they still invested a decent amount of money into the live-action films, they started to invest more money into these classics / generations Chug-style Transformers figures, and the rest is history. And today, the idea of bringing back the characters that were originally made back in the 1980s during Transformers Generation 1, and even during the 90s with Generation 2 and the Beast era, Beast Wars, Beast Machines, Neo, Beast Wars 2nd. There's been a lot more Transformers fans and collectors clamoring for more Chug-style Transformers figures. But yeah, here's the style of the box that the original Classics figures in 2006 were sold in case you want to see it on a video here on YouTube instead of just staring at a photo on the internet. They had these, the box itself had a gimmick where you had this little cardboard flap on the front of the box showing the character in alt mode, and when you flipped it up, it would reveal the character in robot mode, which almost matched the product photo on the back of the box. At this time, there were still tech specs showing the strengths and weaknesses that characters had within the Transformers fiction instead of the number of steps it took to transform the Transformers figure, since that was printed on the instruction sheet. If you hear some beeping, my computer's going through some update. I'm ignoring that. I tried to stop it last time, and I ended up accidentally ruining the video, and it had to be broken into 2 parts. But then here, instead of just a 1-sentence bio like we've been getting on the Studio Series figures, back in 2006, during the days of Transformers Classics, you got a whole paragraph showing the bio information on these Transformers characters. So yes, there's a whole paragraph bio for Ramjet here on the back. And it reads, "There ain't nothing around harder than my head. The Decepticons are known for fielding their craziest warriors in the skies, but Ramjet really outclasses them all. He's a born flyer who loves nothing more than crashing. Sure, he's got a whole rack of concussion missiles and argon lasers strong enough to vaporize a Dinobot, but he'd rather skip all that nonsense and just smash head first into his targets and anything else that gets in his way. He's just as likely to smash his allies out of the way as he is to destroy any Autobots in his path, but watching him plow through a battlefield is so fun. Megatron keeps him around anyway." So yeah, pretty crazy bio there for Ramjet. He lives up to his name by ramming himself in jet mode into anyone that he wants to destroy, even if it's a fellow Decepticon. His tech specs here on the top, there's strength, intelligence, speed, endurance, rank, courage, fire blast, and skill. He has a strength of an 8, an intelligence of 5, a speed of 9, an endurance of 9, a rank of 5, a courage of 8, a fire blast of 7, and a skill of 6, so his intelligence and his rank at 5 out of 10. It's on a 1 to 10 scale. So with intelligence and rank at 5, he has an average amount of intelligence, and he's an average ranking Decepticon. Skill is 6, so he has a just above average amount of battle skills. Fire blast of 7, so he has a somewhat decent amount of firepower. Courage and strength are both 8, so Ramjet is fairly strong and fairly brave, and then speed and endurance are 9, so he is really fast and has lots of stamina. So, what he makes up for in speed, and stamina, he lacks in intelligence, so that I just find that really funny that's what I enjoyed about the days of the tech specs, was when it showed the Decepticons having an intelligence of either 5, 4, or 6, showing that basically they were stupid brunts, who believed in brute strength more than using brute strength more than their own minds. I just always found that funny on the bios for Decepticons. And then, of course, on the old days, you got photos advertising other figures that were available in the same wave as the figure here. At the time in 2006, the other deluxe class figures in the Classics line that were being sold besides Ramjet were Grimlock, Mirage, and Cliffjumper. I do have Classics Mirage here. I've never had any interest in getting the Grimlock or Cliffjumper figures. Part of the reason why is because one thing Hasbro decided to do for the Transformers action figures in the Classics line is they decided to give the characters original paint jobs that weren't necessarily accurate to the paint jobs the characters originally had back in the 1980s, whether they be their appearance in the cartoon shows or the paint jobs that their original action figures came out with. Hasbro figured these are brand new action figures of these characters, so why not give them brand new paint jobs? As more and more Transformers fans started messaging Hasbro, we want to see the same paint jobs that these characters had back in the 80s. That's when they slowly made the transition from giving the figures OG paint jobs to giving them the Classics paint jobs, for lack of better vocabulary. So that's one of the legacies with the deluxe Classics Ramjet action figure, is that his paint job isn't necessarily match up with his original Generation 1 action figure. And so, of the 3 deluxe class Coneheads that were eventually released in this mold, Ramjet is the one that looks the least like his original self. Dirge and Thrust, who were both released in the Generations line. Thrust was released 4 years after Ramjet in the Generations line in 2010, and then Dirge was released the following year in 2011, also in Generations. Their paint jobs are a lot more closer to the source material than Ramjet's is. But as I said, this is a replacement action figure. I actually found a copy of Classics Ramjet back in 2010, shortly after Thrust had been released in the Generations line. I found him at a thrift store, or a pile of used, dare I use the T-word, toys, and he was actually in a lot worse condition than he is right now. Whoever previously owned this copy of Classics Ramjet, they had superglued him to a piece of green paper, and when I found this figure, there was a green rectangle here in front of his chest. As I tried to chip away the green paper as much as I could, but of course the super glue is still there, and it just obliterated Ramjet's paint job. As you can see, there's a paint that chipped right off right there. The super glue got completely into the landing gear here, which becomes the intake vent ends, which double as the tricep muscles for Ramjet when he's in robot mode. So I've never been able to get those open. So yeah, this Ramjet figure definitely saw better days. The wing tips were gone. I actually bought a spare copy of Generations Thrust, and I took the wings and also the null rays off of that Generations Thrust figure to give to Ramjet here to try and make him a full jet. The only part of him out of this copy of Ramjet that managed to stick to the surface of him without being damaged was the rub sign here on the top of the fuselage, which that was the gimmick with the Transformers Classic sign, was that rub signs came back, and so every action figure that was released in the original Classics line in 2006 just had a rub sign on them as the only faction symbol. Rub signs returned with the reveal of the Shield line in 2011, but after that, Hasbro decided to drop the rub sign gimmick. So yeah, there's Ramjet's rub sign. I don't know if it's wear and tear with time or what, but Ramjet's rub sign shines up very easily, so there it is. As you can see, he's a Decepticon, and again, I apologize for my camera blurring stuff when it gets too close to the lens, but yeah, he is a full-fledged Decepticon. There's also additional paint here on the, it's hard for my camera to pick it up because it's white, but if I put my hand around it, as you can kind of see right there, there was a lot of paint chipping on the sides of the nose cone, even up here on the top of the fuselage, the white frame. And the paint had chipped off. I tried to replace it as best I could. So yeah, this has always been a battle-damaged Ramjet. Oh, I forgot. There was also two smaller green rectangles here on the base of Ramjet's feet. So yeah, whoever previously owned this Ramjet figure superglued him to a piece of green paper, and when they tried to rip him off, the green paper stuck to it. I did see not so much Transformers action figures, but what I was into collecting before Transformers action figures, Legos. One time years ago, I went to an elementary school to see a close friend's kids. It's a science fair project, and they had superglued some Legos to a paper surface for their science fair project, and so my theory is that if it wasn't a kid who had superglued Ramjet to a piece of paper for whatever reason, if an adult had done it, then they probably should have known better. But that's my theory of whoever previously owned Ramjet, that it might have been a young kid who thought nothing of supergluing him to a piece of green paper for whatever reason. So yeah, this Ramjet action figure bears the battle scars of heavy wear and tear, air and play. So, I told myself that if I ever one day found a copy of Ramjet on the internet that was in much better condition with the original null rays, which out of every version of the Deluxe Class Classics Seeker mold that was released, Ramjet is the only one whose missiles are a different shape than they are on the other Seekers. So yeah, I will be replacing this copy of Ramjet that I tried to save and mod and restore as best as I could with this new, much better one on to display with my Deluxe Class Conehead Seekers. I might keep this one to use as a battle-damaged Ramjet after he's been wounded by the Autobot. It's just because battle-damaged Transformers have armors. They aren't always as popular as non-battle-damaged Transformers action figures are. But yeah, that's just my excuse for wanting to keep the figure that I modded. So yeah, I finally have a non-abused, still in the box copy of Classics Ramjet, which is a neat find after 19 years being able to find it not only on the internet but on Amazon of all places. So yeah, I'm not going to review this figure, but I did want to spend the majority of this video showing it off. So I might change the title of the video to video, but I probably won't for the sake of spoiling it. I'll keep everyone in suspense as to why the video is 24 minutes long. But thank you guys all so much. This has been the TFfangeek, showing you my latest haul of Transformers action figures. I got 2 upgrade kits. It's one for Studio Series TF1 Megatron, one for Studio Series 86 Commander Class Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime's upgrade kit is the white box, and Megatron's is the brown box. I also got the other Leader Class figure besides Megatronus Prime. I am from the Age of the Primes line, Wave 1, which is G2 Grimlock. And I finally managed, after many years of patiently waiting, I managed to get an undamaged copy of the original 2006 Classics Ramjet added to my Transformers collection, so I'm really thrilled to finally have a proper version of Ramjet with the correct wingtips, the correct null rays, no damage due to super glue. So yeah, that was a really nice addition there. So thank you guys all so much for watching, and until next time, you guys, this has been the TFfangeek, and please remember to stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.